This is the Zcash Foundation community call about Halo. So we wanted to do this call, invite the whole community to discuss the proposed next major network upgrade, or at least major upgrade to the proving system for Zcash, originally named Halo after the recursive proof system, actually called Halo 2, and the proposed network upgrade name would be Orchard. I'm posting a link to the blog post that the Zcash Foundation posted about almost a week ago, where we lay out basically like we want to adopt Halo, Halo 2, or Orchard, however it gets eventually integrated into the protocol, and what we need to do that. There's been a ton of great work from the Electric Coin Company engineers and cryptographers, but we want to make sure that Halo lands with the success that Sapling landed basically into the protocol. And we think there's still work to be done to do that. The proposal, or at least the goal, as far as we have been told by the ECC, is they think this would be ready for NU5, which is the next network upgrade, which is currently scheduled for June of this year, June 2021. We think it's on the way there, but we think there's still more work to be done to have Halo land in Zcash with the same scientific security rigor that Sapling landed with such great success and confidence from not just the cryptocurrency and privacy community, but the scientific and the scientific community as well, and cryptographic community. So we think we need to do some work before we can land Halo, if at least not in this next coming network upgrade. So I'm basically going to be reading some of the things that we would like to see to get Halo ready for integration into the Zcash, the protocol. This is enumerated in a blog post, but I'll basically be reporting some of that. For this call is scheduled for about an hour and a half. We'll be laying out what I just said as what we think we need to do to get Halo ready for integration. And then we'll be asking what you think about that. And then we can talk about these points. That's basically how the structure of this call is going to go. So basically, we want to adopt Halo, but we think there needs to be more specification work done so that we can actually evaluate its security levels as robustly as we did with enough time for third-party review as we did for Sapling. Regular Halo was originally published in 2019, and they had a white paper, but there have been updates because there was Snarktober. There was a flurry of work to snark-based proofs and recursive proof systems around Halo. So Halo 2 is the basis of the new proving system. That hasn't been fully written up yet, and we would like to see that fully written up, either as a white paper, a technical report, or some sort of follow-on onto the original Halo paper, so that we can give it the same rigorous review that the equivalent Groth16 proving system underpinning Sapling got. And some of that's just the proving system, but that also includes updates to Zcash, the protocol, and updates to the spec, and updates to any related zips that need to be kind of locked before they are available for third-party security and cryptographic reviewers to say, this is the system, please go evaluate it based on its cryptographic, privacy, and security properties. And that doesn't seem to be locked yet with enough time to do that review for a launch for June 2021. Let's see what else. And then that's the specification, that's the cryptographic part, the proof part, and the protocol write-up. The implementation is the implementation of Halo 2 is available on GitHub, but I don't think it is the same sort of situation. The implementation of Zcash that would be called Orchard, formerly called Pollard, that would integrate the new proving system hasn't been locked yet. Like, there are changes to Halo 2 crypto code base today, And then there's changes to Zcash, the code base, the Zcash D code base almost every day. Some of them are related to Halo and some of them are not. So that would also have to be locked to allow an independent security audit of the code, and then changes from that audit to come back and implement and integrate it into the code base, similar that we did to Sapling, because we got this great NCC security audit report for Sapling, and we would love to have the same thing so that we can have the same confidence that Orchard, or whatever the name of the network upgrade that we get that would integrate Halo, would also have. It would be great in the ideal world. We wouldn't be adding and adding and adding stuff to Zcash without also deprecating stuff from Zcash, the protocol, because needing to keep adding stuff that you have to support and maintain and keep secure is a maintenance burden on what is mostly a finite set of open source developers. And, you know, it's a burden. And it's a burden to the complexity of the protocol, the software, and the opportunity cost of what else we can do when we're not trying to maintain support for Transparent, Sprout, Sapling, and Halo, or whatever we call it, all at the same time. In an ideal world, we would deprecate something while we add something. But if we're going to add something, let's have a plan to deprecate other stuff. We're already moving towards a world where we deprecate Sprout. You can no longer send money to Sprout addresses. We would like to see more movement on that eventually in the long run. Pairing it with Halo would be great. We should discuss that. Dovetailing with that, when Sapling was launched, Halo was not a glimmer in anyone's eye. Recursive proving systems, I think, were a theoretical thing. And then only a handful of years after Sapling was deployed in the wild, Halo became the new thing. My point being that we didn't think we were going to deprecate Sapling when we deployed Sapling. Maybe we should think about a world where we need to deprecate Halo when we deploy Halo. And as an engineer, this is a thing that you may not usually think about, because the thing you're working on at the time seems to be the best possible option for your system, and you're trying to just get the thing to work. But sort of being humble about the design of your system and the ability to deprecate something in the future when something better comes along would behoove us. And to have that sort of forward-thinking plan, or at least kind of spitballing about a future where maybe we need another network upgrade, or maybe there's some fundamental issue with Halo or whatever that we need to address and need to move away from Halo, similar to how we're moving away from Sprout and Sapling now. It would be great to have that in our back pocket, or at least we've been thinking about it, just for the maintenance burden of the protocol, to have that in mind. And then finally, we have a much larger partner community with Zcash, the protocol, than we did with Sapling. There's been a lot of great work from the ECC with their SDKs, their exchange partners, and people that integrate with Zcash D. And the SDKs used by wallet developers, especially, to get Halo support, new Halo addresses, and all of that sort of stuff. Kind of like you just do an upgrade and it's kind of easy. But even so, our integration surface of where we are now is much larger than it was for Sapling. And that's great, because Zcash has been thriving. We have people who use our software, depend on our protocol, and integrate with us. But given everything that we've already laid out, it's unclear if they're going to have enough time, and not given the number of integration points, to update to Halo in less than 6 months. Some of them have. Some of them are ready to go. Not all of them are. So we think these things are, we should probably have these ducks in a row before we say Halo is ready for the next network upgrade. So we want to know what you think. And that's kind of where we're at. That's kind of the setup here.
I mean, can't we this is working. Can't we divorce the questions of timing and upgrades from the question of security review? It seems to me that if you can get as much review as we got for Sapling and Graph 16, and keep in mind that Graph 16 was not a new zero knowledge proof system at that time, and Halo is. But if we can get as much review as we got then the timing is a completely different question, right? So the question is, what's the standards for review, and can they be done?
Yes.
And that's totally divorced from sort of questions of roadmaps and prioritizations and ecosystem integration, right? These are sort of two separate things.
I wouldn't say they're two separate, because if you integrate a thing and you don't have, and you can't go backwards. Once we ship Halo and people are sending money, we can't just be like, we can't just roll back. It is like it is a strictly forward ratcheting kind of upgrade process, ignoring the deprecation of old stuff. So if we don't have things that are like, we have integration with our partners and these sort of like, how do you, like, is there a plan, an idea, a glimmer of like how to turn this off in the eventual day? Something bad happens or something better happens that we need to turn this off. That's something you would like to have beforehand.
I guess
also,
just
sorry, go Chelsea.
Yeah, I was going to say, to build on what Deidre is saying. So, Ian, I think you're right in that there's the question of what review do we need in place. So, absolutely, like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the review that you need for a new proof system. I know that there has been some already, but there's the difference between academic review and then review of this proof system in Zcash in particular. So there's that question, but I think it's totally fair to say, and here's where we are. There is a call from the ECC to integrate this in the next network upgrade, which is June. And we need to say we're not ready because the amount of review that needs to happen does not fit in that time frame. So that's why we're talking about both of these things.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think it's important to be clear, because so frankly, my worry is that a number of people will perceive the very real requirements that I think everybody agrees on for getting security review as a pretext for delaying Halo. And I want to sort of make sure that we're very clear that, like, there's question of review and, as you said, Deidre, deprecation, and then separately questions of timing and ecosystem support, amongst which reasonable people could and almost certainly will disagree. And I should say I agree that we should take our time on this, but I want to make sure we have these very separate things, because I'm frankly quite worried for the community right now that these are all going to get conflated into a very ugly set of discussions in a way where they don't need to be and shouldn't be.
Okay. One of the things that I think kind of top line of why we would say we're not ready to ship this in NU5 is mostly because with Sapling, we had somewhere about 14 months when the spec/zips were locked to shipping on mainnet. And in that time, we were able to do almost all of this work, save for the deprecation plan. I don't think, that's fine. But what we were able to get out of that was robust cryptographic protocol and implementation review, such that, and then reintegration of feedback from all of those reviews into the software that actually got shipped in Zcash. And when Sapling landed, it was a triumph. Like, I work on Zcash because it is considered a cryptographically robust and cutting edge deployment of zero knowledge proofs. The MPC ceremony for setting up parameters is considered also a triumph. And it was done with robust scientific implementation rigor. It is considered good in a cryptocurrency ecosystem that is full of cowboys, to use a stereotype. I want Halo to do the same thing, because I would be very sad if the kind of top tier feeling that Zcash the project, Zcash the protocol has been able to maintain were kind of tarnished a little bit if the Halo launch got rushed. Even if we as a bunch of cryptographers and security people kind of look at everything that we see about Halo and we're like, yeah, that looks good. Yep, that looks like a good idea and we should do that. But like, we have our heads in the weeds. Like we read these interesting zero knowledge papers all the time, and we are looking at the code all the time, and we're kind of in our little bubble and we're like, yeah, that sounds good. But you know, part of the security story is having outside reviewers about the implementation, the protocol, the specifications, and the proofs, so that we don't have to just say, take our word for it. So I don't think we have the time for NU5 to kind of reach that standard again. Aaron, thank you, Anthony.
Thanks. So I'd like to share my perspective. And the most important thing is I think Halo is amazing. I think what the ECC team, Sean, Dara, Strad have done with taking this idea, starting with the original novel basic observation about the ability to amortize the expensive parts of the snarks and thereby remove the reliance on SRS, and then the many optimizations and improvements that have been done to get performance back. It's really striking from a technical perspective. And I say this as an academic and as a Zcash enthusiast under all hats. Now, reasonable people can and will disagree, as Ian put it, on opportunity costs. What would have happened if we put all of these optimizations into Sapling? What happens if we focused on other matters of functionalities like custom assets and UDAs and programmability? And these are all great questions that I would love to discuss. But none of these detracts from the brilliance and value and importance of Halo and its integration specifically into Zcash, the many details of which I am eager to see written up and review.
Yeah, same.
With that in mind, and turning to the practical questions of, okay, when can we actually use it in our wallets? So here's what I'm missing. And I hope that I will just be proven ludicrous by someone pointing out that the following is already published or somehow out there, but I haven't seen it. And what I want to know is, what does the timeline and dependency chain look like? There are dozens of tasks that need to be done. Clearly, review of multiple things, right? There's a review of the proof system, there's a review of the constraint systems, there's review of the integration into the protocol, there's review of the tooling, the RPC changes, the CLI, the new address formats, and it's not just ad reviews, because when you change the address format, then everyone who ever verified the Zcash address needs to verify their code. And then there are all of these integrations, there's a communication around it, the SDK changes, user education. We need to design the surrounding migration tools with, like, okay, there are multiple pools, need to be migrations between the pools. Last time we blew it by actually not bothering implementing it in advance. Don't tell anyone. So and so on and so forth, right? I could continue enumerating, and I'm looking for a place where this is already enumerated and where people can say, hey, you forgot about my thing, because my privacy preserving messaging service or merchant payment processor or whatever actually needs also your payment disclosures using the new addresses to work. Where are the payment disclosure zip and implementation and test vectors? So a comprehensive list of this form would have many dozens of entries, even at the high-level discussion. And I foresee that if we actually analyze the dependency change, we'll see that the critical path between having a clear understanding of the protocols in the minds of the engineers building it, all the way to having the last important exchange integrator, merchant, the non-profit accepting donations, every one of them say, we are go for this integration. that doesn't feel like NU5 to me.
Yeah.
So what's the process by which we achieve this comprehensive view and then schedule around it?
Well, I don't think it's the zip process and we have the network upgrade pipeline that has a lot of the things that we've discussed and the things that you just mentioned in there, but it's kind of, there are a lot of ambiguities about who does what. It's generally been the ECC driving network upgrades in the past. It's unclear if there is a process officially to enumerate those things. So those are very good questions, though. Yeah. Sure. You have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Sorry, too many buttons. I've just posted a link to the ECC's timelines for the last 2 network upgrades. They don't list all of the tasks that you were talking about, but they give a good overview of the kind of categories of tasks and the orders that they come in. So at the moment, I think we're about at the zip review stage. So well, actually, sorry, we're not at the zip review stage because we don't have a zip yet. But there has been work done on the code and specification, but none of that is final or ready to be audited or ready to be deployed on Testnet or ready to be tested. And there are dependencies in here because we want to get the audits done before we partners start working on things in case the audits suggest design changes. So overall, sticking to this kind of timeline, it looks like we might be 12 to 15 months away from final deployment on mainnet right now. But there may be parts of this that have already been done that I don't know about, that the ECC hasn't announced yet.
Walter, did you want to talk about process?
I don't think there is anything to talk about. Let people get it working, and then you can figure out when you want to deploy it. I mean, don't try to be more process heavy than NASA. I mean, this is all about getting stuff done. And right now, you set a date 6 months out, and you want to have gates and you want to have meetings. I'm amazed in this bunch that young people want bureaucracy and old people just want to get it done. This blows my mind. Something happened in this world.
Well, I would say we don't want process for process sake. We want to hold this high quality standards of both.
Yeah, exactly. So quality is about risk mitigation, quality about smart people beating stuff out of it. Not, you know, Boeing probably had 1 million pages of process and meetings. The plane still fell down. So let's not pretend like, you know, talking about it a lot and having meetings and writing documents actually does anything, okay? Let's let the people who are experts get it done. Let the people who are experts at hacking stuff hack at it. We know who they are. We know how to hire them. Let people who are competent do their work, including, you know, some people present here, myself included. I know who to ask to hack your stuff if you'd like, and move forward. Nothing sacred about that date. So you release it in September, whatever. So you release it for Christmas. What's the big deal? Maybe Microsoft needs to be on semi-annual release cycle. What's up with you guys? Why don't you just do the work and impress everybody?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, Deirdre, let me clue you in. I was at Berkeley when Unix was being put on Vaxes, okay? And the way you do it is you practice on undergraduate students. You just deploy new releases the day before finals, and they'll crash it for you, and so on, okay?
Like, we don't want to do that with people's money.
Do you do your stuff. You know, this is how the ARPANET happened, is you do it, all right? There is no substitute for actually doing the work, beating up on it, having the smartest, you know, either trying to pick holes in it or anticipating. That's it, you know?
Right, we want to do that before people put their money in it.
Exactly. So there is no point in saying, well, so here is a fixed date and oh, here is the fixed process. Let's actually break it a few times.
Sure.
I mean, that's what I'm going to do is, you know, build it, break it, see, you know, ask Dara a few questions. And there is no substitute for actually figuring it out, you know?
Yeah.
To jump in, because I queued myself, and then after it's on, I actually had a question for people. So I personally have not reviewed a proof system like Halo, but there are people here who have. So like I know I don't. Yeah. So Iran can speak to this. Pratyash, I do not know how to pronounce your name, but I do know you from Twitter and your like academic work. There's other people who have like reviewed proof systems like this. So I would love to hear from people who have reviewed this, where they think the science is, what else we need. Clearly, we've heard from the engineers as well. So I'd love to hear suggestions from people.
You're muted, Iran.
Thank you. So before answering that, I'd like to respond to Walter, and I can't believe I'll be defending processes, so I won't. I will still be defending coordination. And the thing that makes for coordination required here is that we have an ecosystem. We have an emerging second implementation of the Zcash protocol that needs to be kept in sync and compatible with any zip that will be accepted. We have people implementing by themselves all sorts of parts of the protocol, starting with relatively superficial things like handling the addresses and going into very deep things like integration with the Zcash shielded transaction generation and the selective disclosure, and even protocols like Bolt. We need to make sure that we are not missing any crucial dependencies and that we are not misleading them into working on the wrong things, or whether it's working on something that would eventually not be integrated, or investing into something that would soon be discarded in favor of a replacement in Halo. So we need some joint action here, and that requires time. It requires a good communication, occasionally, yes, verbosity, and effective processes for making sure that all the stakeholders are looped in at a stage where they can still have their voices heard to affect the design. Because showing the end result with the detailed zip and the prototype and the proof and saying, okay, NU5 is 3 months out according to the chart, the only way to deploy it would be to just rubber stamp things that were done by some excellent experts, but with no external feedback. That doesn't strike me as the ideal way to make sure that all stakeholders' perspectives are incorporated. So let's not be NASA, but let's make sure that we realize we have an ecosystem here. Mm-hmm. Now, just about reviews, so they are actually difficult, and especially for the ever increasing level of complexity that we're seeing in the proof systems, in the surrounding protocols, and in the optimizations. So, I mean, we had it easy back in the zero cache days. The Sapling review with all of the optimized Pedersen commitments with a specific way to shuffle the bits in order to reduce some constraints. You know, that was a lot harder. Not to mention the protocol itself with the key derivation and the many aspects. And we definitely realized that some things could have been done better later. Fortunately, not on the security side, certainly on the efficiency side. And from everything I hear, it sounds like Pollard would be, we have substantially more moving parts. It's difficult to find people who can sit down for the very long process of checking the I's and T's on such proofs. Offhand, I'm not even sure who to line up who would be available for a job of this magnitude. These people tend to be very busy.
Maybe Pratush can speak to that.
And just to stress again, but just one final point, just to stress again, it's not just about the crypto. It's also about the surrounding protocol. And a big part of the trick in making these protocols so efficient and flexible is by pushing complexity outside the proof system and the constraint system into the surrounding blockchain protocol, which is the much bigger kind of worms in terms of moving parts. I want to see again, as before, this broken down into components, some ideas about who can do it in what timeline, and see where it fits in the big picture.
Pratush?
Yeah, hi everyone. Yeah, so just I guess going off of Iran's point, I guess I can speak more to the crypto and like the constraint writing than maybe the use in the surrounding protocol. I'm not so familiar with the plans for that. But in terms of the crypto itself, I guess people working in this area, there's maybe like 10 overall, maybe 15. And I don't think that maybe outside Zcash and Mina, there's a lot of folks who sort of understand both the constraint optimizations and the protocol optimizations. And I'm not sure that, I guess what we've also seen over the past 6 months or whatever, 1 year since Halo was released, that there's been a lot of simplifications. So just like, I guess in December, our work as well as other work from Stanford also simplified, I discussed some ways to simplify Halo-style protocols. So I feel like, from what I understand, what Halo, or like what Sean, Dara, and Strad have been doing is trying to optimize very much existing, like what they had in mind with the original Halo, with some optimizations from Plonk. But I guess I'm not exactly sure if sort of going all in on those optimizations is the way to achieve efficiency, because it adds complexity. You have to prove that the optimizations are secure in both like the constraint world as well as for the protocol itself. So yeah, and I guess like I think I told Matt this earlier, but I'm not aware of it, as I guess Iran also reiterated. I don't think there's a lot of people who are well versed in sort of both levels of the optimizations at both the protocol level as well as the constraint level. Yeah.
Thank you. One idea of a third-party reviewer is JP Almanson's shop, where they reviewed a lot of threshold signature. They reviewed, I think, Zcash implementations or other cryptocurrency implementations with proofs. They're a strong candidate. NCC Group reviewed the implementation of Zcash before, but more names and their calendars and where Halo can fit on their calendars, always welcome. Chelsea. Oh, sorry, Ian, then Chelsea.
I was going to say, I actually might be slightly more optimistic about how quickly all of this can be done. But the problem is we don't know, because the stuff isn't finally public. So as somebody who is not an expert in building zero-knowledge proof systems and works frequently with people who are, and therefore has to exactly manage this cognitive overhead of what pieces need to be reviewed when, one thing is code review. That I think you can get done subject to availability pretty straightforwardly. The other thing is the circuit and protocol optimizations, which, as Pratush said, there are a very small number of people who understand them. There'll also exist the possibility that those haven't changed much between Sapling and Pollard. It's actually unclear. And what little indications I know of suggest, in fact, that there aren't that many changes. But if there are, that's a major, major bottleneck. But if there aren't, it actually might be fine. And then finally, you need to just review the zero-knowledge proof system. And that's manageable. You just have to hire one of the, I don't know, maybe it's not 15 people, maybe it's 30, and hire a couple of them. And that's just a thing we didn't do last time, really, for Sapling. There was one review, but we were using an existing proof system that had been out for a year or two. Mm-hmm. And so it's actually possible that if the right people are available and the changes to Pollard, the circuit, are not that big versus Sapling, that it's a manageable set of tasks if the people's schedules are free. We just really need to figure out what the standards for review are, and then just let the cards fall where they may. Either it works out that you can get it done, or it's not in U5 in June, it's December or September, or whenever we want to inflict it on whatever the moral equivalent of undergrads are in the Zcash ecosystem. I really wish we could just like put it in like MIT's campus dining program, and then as our testnet. Worst case, if something goes wrong, then a bunch of undergrads get free cake for a week until we fix it. That would be a nice, fun way to do testing.
Pratyush mentions that even the constraint language has changed from R1CS to whatever Planck's model is.
Yeah. So that is, yes, that is one of the things that definitely needs independent review, and that is exactly where the 10 to 15 people bottleneck happens. Hey, Pratyush, you do consulting?
There's a clue. But go ahead, Pratyush, and then I'm going to...
and then...
Sorry,
Yeah, and then
I'm not familiar with Planck. Go ahead, Chelsea.
So I think I want to build on the idea of review. So I think there is the science of Halo, and what I learned from Pratyush actually is really interesting in that Halo kind of came out around Planck, and the state of science has advanced since then. So I do not understand like where those advancements are, and like, is the science moving so quickly that actually there's like things that would be even better now. It is a super quickly moving field, so that is something I just learned and I hadn't really thought about. But in terms of review, I think there's like for example, I do not believe the NCC group has like reviewed the like science behind these zero knowledge proofs. So there's like a scale of the system versus the science, and I think we need to be super careful about being clear about who can review those kinds of things. So.
That's
okay. Yeah, maybe they have.
Yeah, +1 to that. I don't think the reaction's on here, but
a question from Andrew that echoes something that Tiora was saying before, which is, suppose hypothetical we're aiming for NU6, which would be around December 2021 of this year. Any suggested timeline examples, estimates that we could talk about at this point? How long might review take? So I reposted. Oh, was that the wrong link? I'm sorry. That's the NCC group one because I copied the wrong thing. This is the NU3, NU4 NUP diagram that we were talking about earlier. And let's see. Zip review followed by spec and code implementation in parallel. In parallel, auditor selection, specification audit. Specification and code implementation have definitely been already happening for Halo. That includes like zips and stuff, writing into the zips. So specification audit, approximately on this NUP timeline, takes 3.5 months, takes 3 months, not including auditor selection. And then immediately following code implementation is another 2 months of implementation audit, and that leads to testnet activation. So, you know, you can shift some of these things around and determine like which ones are blocking and necessarily sequential or which ones can be parallelized. But 3 months seems to be specification audit, implementation audit, which does exist, but is in flux a little bit because they're still making code changes, is 2 months. So that's a frame of reference, at least. Comment from Walter, get the implementation far enough to stand up an alpha test and let folks beat it up for a month and worry about schedule, product, and deployment. Okay. Tior.
It's also important that we allow about a month for implementation fixes and spec fixes after we've done the audits, because yeah, there are inevitably changes to fix bugs. There might be changes to APIs, which have a cascading effect, and we don't want to have deployed to testnet or be doing the implementation audit before we've done those fixes. because that just adds to our costs, and we can't freeze anything until we've done fixes. So I think looking at these timelines, we're looking at maybe 5 to 6 months on audits and fixes, another month of zip review if we really crush it very quickly. And then we're on testnet, and then we have to work with partners to help them adopt the new features and the new address type. So yeah, I think we're looking at 7 months before we're on testnet, and then time for people to write integrations and for exchanges to catch up and those kind of things.
Yeah. Holmes, did you do your maintainer for Zbay? How does this affect you?
It's not exactly clear. I mean, there's things. I think. Let's see. We're not. I don't know if memos would be affected. I don't know if viewing key. I guess viewing keys is probably the densest thing. Like, and Aaron included this in his examples, or Ron included this in his examples. You know, what if they released without support for something kind of not marginal, but something kind of on the outside of the spec, like viewing key support? That could be an issue. I'm not sure. Will it become impossible to generate new sapling addresses once this upgrade goes through? Yeah. Okay. So then it wouldn't. That would be an issue potentially. Although, actually, you know.
That was just me nodding like that is a good question, and it's interesting that you aren't sure about some of that you have these questions. That's good to know. I don't think it makes it impossible to make sapling addresses. I think sapling will continue to function, and there's supposed to be a turnstile similar to from Sprout to sapling, but from sapling to Halo or Orchard. But you still will be able to create sapling addresses, as far as I know.
Yeah. So I mean, my guess is that, well, I should also zoom out and say that Zbay is at a really, really early research project, kind of let's try it out with some people stage, and we aren't supporting a large number of users, and we also are at an early enough stage in defining the project that a lot of the things we depend on for Zcash now might even be changing, and the list of things we depend on Zcash for is probably going to shrink because we're going to do more stuff off chain, because that makes more sense. And so, and I would say that except for exchanges and a handful of wallets, Zec Wallet, Unstoppable, Nighthawk, and really maybe Zec Wallet, like most projects are at a similarly proto stage. Most ecosystem projects are at a similar proto stage. I think, the exchanges are probably the exception. So I was getting, in a funny way, against interest, because it would be great if everything just works great for Zbay and there's no headaches for us. I was getting a little bit uncomfortable with the idea that that progress on the platform overall could be delayed because of worries about the ecosystem. When from my perspective, the ecosystem is so fledgling that and we're all kind of rolling with it. And the main show here is getting Zcash to work and be scalable and attracting interest from the broader ecosystem, right? So that's one thing. I think it's possible to overstate the amount of infrastructure and investment happening in the ecosystem right now, because there are projects, but many are very fledgling. So I think probably if the exchanges that already support or are planning to support shielded are happy with the progress, I think that's probably a good sign that we're on the right track, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. MD, do you want to discuss your question and speak for how this will impact Gemini?
Yeah, I mean, I think the technical docs were pretty helpful. I guess like for us, it's mostly we're probably just gonna wait for like how the transaction formats look, and obviously like the address formats. But I'm curious, like there was one call out here in the doc, like about the metadata leakage. Like, is that like just concerning like the shielded pool transactions, or how'd that look? And very similarly, very related, would there be any impact from like the shielded pool to transparent and vice versa?
Where
Well,
you?
I guess from.
Oh, sure, please, if you can answer.
Yeah, so it seems like you're reading the ECC's technical summary of the Halo 2. Yeah, okay. So all of the technical changes in there are talking directly about Halo 2. So the reduction in metadata leakage means that it's harder to distinguish what a transaction is doing. I think specifically they talk about having actions in a transaction rather than more detailed categories of outputs and spends and those kind of things. There is, as far as I know, there's no impact on transparent or Sapling shielded transactions. And the change to stop adding more value to the Sprout pool happened in Canopy, the last network upgrade. So we are talking about deprecating some older features, but there's no plan for that yet. We do think there should be a plan to provide certainty for the ecosystem and for exchanges, but honestly, there's no plan to get rid of Sapling anytime soon. But we should make that clear, and we should give people clear timelines on how the deprecations will work and when they'll happen.
How does like the Zebra play into this? Like I'm assuming you guys want to stand parallel. Like, will Zebra support all of this, or how's that related?
Zebra will support the Zcash protocol to its fullest. And if that includes Halo, when that includes Halo, we will have to support it. Some of our questions include basically there's a whole bunch of new proving system code that looks good, but we already pull in Bellman, we pull in a bunch of libraries that are and they're fully ECC code. We're trying our damnedest to be a independent implementation of Zcash so that we can have, two different code bases. They don't necessarily share the same security vulnerabilities, except for maybe, crypto libraries that are, there's like a debate about, keeping all of your eggs in one basket and secure that basket really well. Like if we were going to do that for Halo, like, okay, we're going to keep pulling in more dependencies and be very, stringent maintainers of Halo 2, but also, we have, it kind of sucks, but that's kind of already the decisions we've already made about how we build and integrate with these like fundamental crypto libraries like Halo 2 and Bellman. We want to support it. Like that's the plan, but we're almost there validating Canopy, but, we will have to be almost there validating Halo 2 whenever Halo 2 is, quote unquote, in the Zcash spec or about to be activated on mainnet and all that jazz. That's the plan. Let's see. Ian is in the queue. Ian has talked twice. Aditya, you're the maintainer of Zec Wallet. Zec Wallet is supported by grants from the Zcash Foundation. Do you want to talk about how this affects you?
Hi. So there are, I think, two Adityas. The other Aditya is doing the Zec Wallet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I'm on the Nighthawk Wallets team. So I think it's in very early stages for us just to review the zip and see the upcoming changes. So I haven't really dived deeper into how it's going to affect the end systems, but I'm looking forward for the payment-related structures and protocols that become standardized. So it's very in the preliminary stage for us, looking into the zip. And we do rely on the librust SDKs that come through the ECC and mobile wallet SDKs. So we really rely on those updates and Kevin and Paco to do that work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for the mix-up.
No worries.
Several Adityas working on several wallets. Ian, you're in the queue.
Right, so I had a question for anyone here who works on a thing that currently doesn't support shielded usage. I guess this is a question for the representative from Gemini, among others. How, if you guys were planning on doing it, if anybody was planning on doing it, once Halo ships, there's now this question of, do you add support for Sapling? Do you add support for Halo shielded? Do you wait for Halo to transactions to do the majority? Like, what's the thought process on that? How do you decide which one you put the resources into and when?
Yeah, so I mean, I can take that, I guess. I mean, it's mostly like what curves we support. So I mean, like this is like totally new, like I guess the pasta curve, great name. But yeah, I mean, mostly we use like HSM backed wallets. So like if the hardware isn't there to support these curves, then like it's like extremely difficult. Although like we have projects in the queue right now to like kind of solve some of those problems where we can get to be a little bit more programmatic with HSMs, and that would just open up like a lot more, obviously, coin support for us, but also being able to support like more of the shielded pool. Yeah, I mean it's really it's pretty much that point. HSM support, if we can get programmatic HSM support for these curves, then we would be able to participate in the shield pool more. I guess as far as compliance goes, we would just like bring up that question again to that team. We haven't had that discussion with like the compliance space in a while, but yeah, I think we would just talk to them about like figuring out that angle. But that's both the technical and I guess like the more compliance related aspects of that.
So can I jump to that? So you're supporting Sapling now for shielded withdrawal. Are you do you need to you're supporting shielded withdrawals at Gemini, but there is an HSM support for the jub curve, right?
We support just withdrawals though. Like we don't support like deposits, so we don't interact with the shielded pool at all. Well, I guess besides to send coin to it. So like we don't really need to worry too much about with the curves at that point. And actually one of the biggest contributions to that was like the Zcash Gemini, which I talked about before, but those are just like plugging into the Rust native libs, and that was like a pretty big one, being able to deliver the product. Yeah, we actually do for like our I think you're referring to like how we derive like our secrets for the OVK, OCK stuff. That we just use our like existing KMS, and I mean that like gives us the 32 byte like random secret. So like we just do that. We didn't build out any new key management software for that.
Got it. Douglas.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just posted my comment in the chat, but I just want to clarify one point that, basically just to reinforce what MD said, we are working on tools to make us more flexible when it comes to curves and other cryptographic primitives and such that we support. So just in terms of pure technology, Halo support really shouldn't be a problem. Now, of course, tying it into the system and whether or not we should support from a business standpoint, those are all different balls of wax. But technically, it shouldn't really be a problem for us.
Okay, that's good. To support what you currently support, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Nick?
Sorry, just a quick question while we're on the topic of exchanges. How long will it take you to support shielded Halo withdrawals from a technical perspective once I guess they're deployed to testnet or mainnet?
Yeah, I mean, we'd like to try to be kind of we try to keep up with like a lot of the changes. So like I think some of the zips are still being worked on, for example. So like we can't really start working on like our integration until like some of those are done. But like generally, don't hold me too much to this, but like 1 or 2 months, depending on how involved it becomes. But I mean, we're used to doing like a lot of these hard forks where the transaction format changes, for example, and like you need to add a new address format. So it's not totally new.
Okay. Nick Hansen, do you have opinions as a miner?
Yeah, so we are mostly concerned with performance. We were able to get some awesome performance improvements put into 4.2, I believe, which was great to allow for better, easier shielded address mining. So from a payment perspective, we'll just kind of go along with whatever is decided by the Zcash community. We'll roll out Halo payments as soon as it's ready. The one thing that is a current and will probably be a constraint for us is the number of transactions. As we start to send out more and more transactions, the wallet starts to get very large and ultimately leads to a pretty large performance degradation, which I'm sure Gemini and some of these guys have probably like on an order of magnitude larger, more withdrawals than we do. I mean, we maybe make like a couple thousand a week, and I imagine they're doing like a couple thousand a day. But that is one problem that we have. But I've already voiced those concerns, and there's like an open issues for them. So I think those are the biggest ones.
Okay, thanks. Did the Gemini people want to speak to the actual max volume of shielded withdrawals they're able to do? It's kind of interesting data.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we've like brushed up against a lot of like the both like the Bitcoin whenever it forked, like those hard-coded limits. So I think yeah, we hit quite a few of those, both with like the shielded, like the maximum number of signatures, for example. It's like kind of crazy. We hit just one above, so we couldn't broadcast that transaction. And like other examples are like we hit some fee rate limiting. And I think that's been since fixed. So the newer nodes are supporting like the fixed fee for children transactions. But yeah, we've been like kind of pretty much careful in like crafting the transaction sizes there.
But you never had any issues with the performance of the daemon itself?
Not that we noticed.
Okay.
It's been pretty much the same.
Okay. Yep. That was just that's the only issue that I've ever had sending large amounts of shielded transactions. Is that it can take 3 to 5 minutes to send.
Wow.
After sending out say tens of thousands previously.
Oh, I guess our problem is a little bit different. Like we send low amount of transactions, but the large transactions.
Number of inputs is very large.
Yeah,
got it.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're sending out large amounts of small transactions, meaning maybe thousands, like I said, thousands a week of 1 to 2 Zcash total. And those after doing that for a couple of weeks or even a month, we start ending up having to do, we call it wallet maintenance, where we basically create a new wallet, send all of the funds to that wallet, and then just leave the other one in the dust. because it just takes it's just too much size.
Thank you. Chelsea.
Yes, I'm in the queue. So just to continue pestering some exchanges. So our goal for Zcash, obviously, is to completely get rid of transparent addresses. Whether or not we can do that ever is like, I guess I should rephrase and say, like, our goal is to make sure as many transactions happen over shielded as like possible, right? Because that's like the value proposition of Zcash, and like we want people to use private cash. I would love to hear on your side what on the Zcash protocol prevents your users from using only shielded transactions.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I mean, our current deposit addresses are all transparent. I guess that's kind of like the bottleneck there. Like you kind of reveal yourself there. But yeah, I mean, it's the technical problems are kind of like the same as before. I think Doug kind of put that more eloquently than I did. But yeah, so we're working on that portion. What remains to be unseen though still is how regulators react to that. So like that, I think aspect we haven't really quite figured out yet. So once we have like the tech in place, then it just becomes like a bit of a regulation concern, which might not be anything, but that's just like the one aspect that I see still.
Okay, and just to confirm that the deposit addresses are transparent due to the limitation for HSMs right now. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Walter asked, do you see a way to architect Zebra and package some future Halo as a plugin now that is the third and perhaps not the last proof system from ECC? Do understand the separate implementation argument, no substitute for a reference code base. Yeah, yes. The way that Zebra is currently architected is multiple sub crates that we integrate together to make Zebra D, the full node binary that we actually run. When we would support Halo, it would probably be a major version upgrade of the software for Zebra D. Very similar to how Zcash G currently releases its software, because it would be a major change to the fundamental running of the full node. Plugins for the plugin sort of description for the software does not really correlate because it is going to be a protocol major version change or major change, and generally implementations of a major version change to the protocol are also major version software changes akin to semantic versioning. Aditya asks,
Deirdre, let me ask it like this. Let's say you knew that ECC is bringing yet another better Halo 3.8 in 2 years. How would you now architect Zebra, and what would you ask of the Halo interfaces to make that a more natural drop-in?
well, it depends if it's a fundamental protocol change or if it's...
Well, I mean, by now, this is number 3, right? It's not like we haven't seen the range of changes that are involved in dropping in a proofing system. In other words, can you this time around architect number 3 so that number 4 is easier?
Just to jump in, there's someone in the queue, so Deirdre's gonna respond, and then we're gonna keep going with the queue. So.
Yes. Which was the next one? Oh, which one's the next one in the queue? I'm missing it. I think it's Aditya. Oh, Aditya's asking. Yeah. It's fundamentally protocol design. The idea around Halo, knock wood, is that we wouldn't require a major network upgrade for changes to the circuit. That that is a huge win. Like we can make changes to, we can ship changes to Zcash and the Zcash consensus rules and things like that to the circuit that determines the zero, like what we're checking in the proofs, without shipping a whole new sapling or a whole new halo. If that holds, it's very possible that something fundamental to how this recursive proof system doesn't work might require like the next major proof system change. Hopefully not. In that case, it's yet another major protocol change. When dealing with major protocol changes about interoperable pieces, implementations of the protocol, those are generally big changes about how the thing is working under the hood. The way that Zebra works is we parse transactions. There are multiple different pieces, versions of transactions. And for the Halo ones, like version 4 or 5, I think it's version 5 will be the Halo ones. We do extra work to support the extra pieces of the field that contain the Halo pieces and do all the same work for the sapling, sprout, and transparent pieces as well. So that is not, that doesn't support a plugin, I guess. It would be us integrating the Halo proof stuff. We'd probably pull in the Halo 2 crate. And that's what we're going to do. Pull in the Halo 2 crate and write the extra, methods, probably a different trait implementation of how we're doing a verifier. And that's just kind of how it goes. I don't want to get off track. Aditya says, are there any benchmarks that run as to how much more efficient the Halo 2 transactions for Pollard, now known as Orchard, would be over sapling? I don't have those on hand. If anyone has those, that would be great. I tried to collect a whole bunch of resources, but I don't have them on hand. If they exist, they're probably on the ECC blog. So I'll reshare the link to the technical explainer that we were talking about earlier. Yes, we have.
I can summarize if you want.
Tior, yeah, go ahead, Tior.
Currently, Groth 16 runs in around 7 to 10 milliseconds to verify individually. Halo takes about 30 milliseconds, so 3 to 4 times slower. But they are much more parallelizable, and there are opportunities for more optimization because the proofs can be recursive. So yeah, so overall it's a bit harder to say, but fundamentally about the same as long as you have 4 cores.
Thank you. I think Ian was saying something. Go, Ian.
Oh, I was just about to say, yeah, it's about 30 milliseconds to verify. I think it's about the same proving time as sapling from what I've heard. The proofs are considerably bigger, and I know that from numbers Tio posted, so I'm, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think we have some members from the Zong, formerly known as the MGRC. Do you know about any tooling or infrastructure that Zom could fund with their piece of the mining reward now that would make it easier to adopt shielded? If anyone has any comment on that, or any promising projects that you've seen.
I'm also, so I work on Zbay, and I'm also a member of the ZOMG. Let's see, our wish list for projects that we're interested in funding is posted on zcashomg.org. In terms of increasing shielded adoption, my position when I ran for the seat on the ZOMG was that wallet apps are a major priority. That, unlike many other cryptocurrencies, we're using centralized exchanges is fine. For people to really enjoy the benefits of Zcash, they have to be using apps running on computers they control with keys they control, or devices they control with keys they control. And then that that there's still a lot of work to, and this is sort of partly my perspective working on Zbay, kind of coming in, there's still a lot of work on things like network layer privacy to be able to make to users very, very strong claims about the privacy properties of what they're using, that they can compare to other privacy tools that they might already be familiar with, the properties of, such as Tor or encrypted messaging apps or something like that. And that's especially true in the wallet app, light wallet context, where there's still a lot of, when you move from a Zcash full node to light wallet to, CLI, light client CLI pairing, the number of known threats to privacy balloons, and there's a long list of them published, but it's quite difficult to explain all of them to users. And once you do, Zcash doesn't look quite as awesome anymore. And so I think going through and doing the work of plugging all those leaks so that there can be, so that very strong claims can be made about the overall privacy of the user's use of the tool is really important. And then I think there's also probably a lot of UX level work that needs to be done to to round that out as well, to make sure that users are guided away from privacy problematic behaviors when they're spending, when they're using what to them seems like private money. It should be clear how to that private behaviors such as like using Zcash as a pass-through are not really a good idea, and they should be warned against things like that. So yeah, I think a lot of where the rubber meets the road is with wallet apps, and I'm excited about funding those. And there already have been a handful of proposals for wallet app infrastructure, one of which has already proceeded to the diligence phase.
Great. Awesome. Okay, we've got about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to try and summarize some themes that I'm hearing, and then we'll see if we can get last comments. So one of the things that I'm hearing in various ways from people is they kind of want a roadmap or a plan or a schedule so that they have enough, or the integration zips or spec for Halo or Polard or Orchard, the next major change, so that they can plan around it. And I would agree with that. I want that too, because I have to plan. We have to plan around it as well. But the Zebra team we're watching all the code. It is our full-time job to pay attention to this, whereas other people have other stuff to do as well. So zips, specs, because it will take anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 or more months for doing the actual work of integrating the changes needed, transaction versions and so on, to support the next version, whatever it looks like. Another thing that I'm hearing is that it's already pretty hard to support shielded, whether you are a miner, because you have to basically recycle your wallet regularly because of it just gets big, or as a supporter of an exchange, because a lot of the ways that you run your exchange is based on HSMs, and they don't support the interesting curves, the current curves for Sapling and the curves for Halo, the pasta curves at all. So that restricts support for shielded to things like shielded withdrawal, but not sending Z to Z. Yeah, and then the earlier themes of we kind of need to get the specs as much as possible with enough time to evaluate them. And enough time is, specs for security and cryptography, but also the specs inform the implementation so that the implementation can also be audited by a third-party security audit. Am I missing anything? But also, and then the other part of like, it's not about the process, it's about the results. And I would agree with that too. We want the good thing. We want the good thing with enough time for people to implement the thing, because they need enough time. Anything that I'm missing? Any big ideas that I'm missing?
I think there was a small one that Pratush pointed out, that the constraint system itself needs a particular piece of review. And that actually came as a surprise to me. I had it set up as code review, protocol review, which I didn't anticipate being that bad, and reviewing Halo as a zero-knowledge proof, which I don't anticipate having problems because we know the idea works. We just need to check that the particular instantiation of it does.
Yeah.
But the constraint system's something else, and that's the bottleneck for reviewers probably.
Cool.
I would also add quickly that from the ZMG point of view, one of the projects we've seen, and we've put out feelers for what kinds of things the community would like us to fund. One of the requests that does come up again and again is stablecoins, and that's one of the things on our wish list. So there is something attractive about, from our perspective, about any progress or about fast progress towards the ability to launch user-defined assets, specifically stablecoins on Zcash.
Okay. That's a good point. I'll let you go next, Chelsea. One of the things that the Zcash Foundation posted in our sort of like roadmap for 2021 is we want to investigate UDAs. But if we're going to do there are zips being written about things like TZEs and things like that as well. But Halo and where that fits with UDAs, whether Halo should come first, then UDAs or TZEs, or vice versa. That is an important interaction that we should be aware of. That's that. Chelsea.
Yeah, just to build on that, Holmes, is it possible to publish like a broad overview of what people are requesting for Zcash? Like that would be really helpful, I think, just to the ecosystem to like take that and be like, this is what people are. I don't know how like biased that might be, but like at least to us, that's really helpful information to know that people are asking for that.
Most of this action is happening in the forums, and so I think just given ZMG's capacity in terms of our number of person hours per month, we probably shouldn't be the ones publishing that. It probably should fall to, well, perhaps a ZMG grantee or perhaps one of the existing organizations in the space that has full-time staff. But yeah, that would be really, that would be super helpful to us too. And we're making sure that all of those, we're trying to be very careful that all the information we're soliciting and all the conversation, or as many as possible, the conversations that we're having are in the forums. We're trying to make, at the suggestion of Iran and others, at the outset of the process, we're trying to make the forums the center for grant making activity as much as possible.
Cool. Anyone else? We've got 10 minutes. While we're wrapping up, I will share, let's see. I've got a whole bunch of links here and I don't think I ever share them. This is the Halo 2 proving system Rust implementation with some documentation. And we've got the new Orchard book, which is basically a documentation book that goes along with some code that doesn't exist yet that I'm aware of. This is not including the changes that live in the Zcash repo, which are here. And then the future location of the Orchard version of the Zcash protocol spec. The Zcash spec is rendered every time that the Zcash/zips repo is recompiled and published. So there isn't a lot of Orchard specific changes in that document yet, but as they roll in, they will go to that URL. And then I already put the technical explainer, and I think that's everything. So yeah, these are the places that all the material that we can find about Halo. Oh, there's the original Halo paper. I don't have the URL handy. If anyone has that would and wants to put that in. If you Google like Halo recursive proving system, an ePrint PDF will come up. But those are all of the resources that we're currently tracking for Halo, along with the Electric Curve Company's blog. So those that's where all the information we're getting about Halo pretty much is. We've been participating in the monthly Arborist calls, which is where Zcash protocol implementers and integrators discuss protocol stuff. Those usually get recorded and uploaded to YouTube almost on the monthly basis. I don't think the December call has been uploaded yet, where we talked a lot about Halo, but hopefully that will get uploaded to YouTube soon. Yeah, okay. This has been great. The sort of pain points and sort of where lots of questions that I'm hearing from people about how does the Halo upgrade whenever it happens affect me and my integrations, like for Zbay, and how it how miner experiences already are, how exchanges experiences already are, but a lot about people kind of wanting to know what the plan is. A fundamental theme of like, what's the plan and when can I see the plan so that I can plan myself around it? And I think that's legit. Anthony.
Oh, when you're done, I just wanted to tell people that I'm going to put this video up by as soon as it gives it to me, and then tomorrow with a quick little summary of this call. And to also thank you, Deirdre, for moderating.
We run the Zcash Foundation Discord server. We are also on the forums. We are also on Twitter, and you can reach us. You can read our blog. But keep talking to us if you want to ask us questions about Halo or about future changes to the Zcash protocol or about Zebra. Like, fire away either on any of these open channels. We always love to hear we love to hear all of this, because this drives what we do, and it helps us inform like the changes to Zcash, the protocol. Okay, 5 minutes left. Anyone got anything else they want to say?
One quick note. I said we didn't know whether the actual circuit protocol was really similar to Sapling or it's different.
Yeah.
I should have read those links more closely, because although the protocol is not specified in a degree of depth, from what Muley is there, for example, for the nullifier derivation, it's different. Can't say quite how much, but different enough that I need to read more.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think it's just Sapling ported over. Okay.
And one last note: the currently reserved zip number for Orchard is zip 224. It is getting filled in, but that's where commentary about the actual zip specification, things that are not already going to be wrapped up in the specification, the Zcash protocol specification, will be in that zip as far as we know. Yep. Cool. I'll give you 4 minutes back. Thank you everyone for coming. This is extremely helpful. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.